Cenk, if you don't mind, can you just stay on air with us for a moment? I actually want to show that clip to our audience. This is what I was referring to earlier, where Biden decided to throw the first punch toward Elizabeth Warren. Let's take a quick look.
I think I know that the senator says she's for Bernie. Well, I'm for Barack. I think the Obamacare worked. I think the way we add to it, replace everything that's been cut, add a public option, guarantee that everyone will be able to have affordable insurance, number one. Number two, I think we should be in a position of taking a look at what costs are. My plan for health care costs a lot of money. It costs $740 billion. It doesn't cost $30 trillion. 3.4 trillion a year, it turns out, is twice what the entire federal budget is. That's before it exists now, without interest on the debt. How are we going to pay for it? I want to hear tonight how that's happened. So as far, my distinguished friend, the senator on my left, has not indicated how she pays for it. And the senator has, in fact, come forward and said how he's going to pay for it, but it gets him about halfway there. There's a lot of other things that need to be done. I have a bold plan to deal with making sure we triple the money for at-risk schools that are Title I schools from 15 to $45 billion a year. But I go down the line, and each of the things we're talking about, I lay out how I can pay for it, how I can get it done, and why it's better.
So, Cenk, just quickly, your thoughts on that and his, I don't know if it was his choice, but to refer to both Warren and Sanders as the senator on my left and the senator on my right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't really care that much about how we refer to them. I care more about the facts. And so I love Bernie Sanders' comeback to that. He said, you say that it costs $30 trillion, Medicare for all. What you leave out is that the current system costs $50 trillion. That's a pretty big thing to leave out. Yeah. So the longer they stay on Medicare for all, the longer progressives get to explain what it is, and the more that American people fall in love with it. Look, you can tell that the other politicians, the establishment guys, know that it's popular because they've all named their plans Medicare fill in the blank, right? Medicare for some, Medicare for America, Medicare for Venezuela, whatever. Okay, no, it's Medicare for all. It's incredibly popular, and that's why you're trying to glom onto it. And one thing about Biden, Julian Castro did have a very good point about it. Whenever he wants to brag about something, he says, oh, Barack Obama's my good friend. Barack Obama and I did this together. And when Jorge Ramos busted him on all the deportations, he's like, well, that was Obama, man. I ain't got nothing to do with that. No, you don't get to have it both ways.
Yeah, definitely. I thought that was a good comeback as well. All right, Cenk, so we're going to touch base with you throughout the night. Hopefully you can grab a few candidates and do one-on-one interviews. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, now let's have a longer discussion about the back and forth regarding Medicare for all. So, Joe Biden throws the first punch toward Elizabeth Warren, and it's on the topic of Medicare for all. His big question is, how are we gonna pay for it? This is too expensive. There's no way that we can afford this. And I actually wanna go to video number 3, where Elizabeth Warren gets an opportunity to respond to him, and then we'll discuss whether or not it was a good response. Take a look.
Direct question, you said middle-class families are gonna pay less, but will middle-class taxes go up to pay for the program? I know you believe that the deductibles and the premiums will go down. Will middle-class taxes go up? Will private insurance be eliminated?
Look, what families have to deal with is cost. Total cost. That's what they have to deal with. And understand, families are paying for their health care today. Families pay every time an insurance company says, sorry, you can't see that specialist. Every time an insurance company says, sorry, that doctor is out of network. Sorry, we are not covering that prescription. Families are paying every time they don't get a prescription filled because they can't pay for it. They don't have a lump checked out because they can't afford the copay. What we're talking about here is what's going to happen in families' pockets, what's going to happen in their budgets. And the answer is on Medicare for all. Costs are going to go up for wealthier individuals, and costs are going to go up for giant corporations. But for hardworking families across this country, costs are going to go down, and that's how it should work under Medicare for all in our health care centers.
So what do you guys think about the way she handled that question? Was it concise enough or was it too, I worry that it was a little too wordy and complex.
Yeah, so that was we were talking as it happened, and my reaction was a little like cringing and nervous as it happened, because she did say the right things there 100%, but she should have said right off the bat, your framing is wrong. So when they talk about raising taxes on the middle class, every corporate media outlet that hosts these debates so far has framed it in this way. But it's become incredibly clear when you read Medicare for All, when you read the plans, that it would cost less as a whole on the taxpayer, on the middle class, and on the poor than it would when you're having this private health insurance. So while you would pay more in taxes, you would pay less overall. So you have to start off with that right away and hammer that point immediately.
The other issue that they really struggle to answer is this idea of abolishing private insurance. It's kind of like a complicated thing to explain to people that aren't used to it, but the whole point, the whole appeal of Medicare for All or a single payer system is that there is a single payer, and when everyone is in it, that's when costs go down because it has more leverage. If you allow people to opt out and get private insurance, it will create a two-tiered system which will by definition undermine the single payer. You can't abolish, if they want to get supplemental insurance on top of it, that's fine, you can't really stop them from doing that. But what you can't let them do is opt out of the single payer, because that is the whole way that the insurance model from the beginning of time has worked. The more people in it, the better it is for everyone.
So the way that the legislation is currently written indicates that the private insurance cannot cover what the federal government would cover, right? Which I think makes all the sense in the world, because what's the point of offering a private insurance plan that has coverage for something that's already completely covered under Medicare for All? Now, there might be certain things that aren't covered under Medicare for All. That list is incredibly limited. And oftentimes people talk about the elective surgeries. Let's say like I got my nose job, right? I don't think that the taxpayer should pay for my nose job. I'll pay for it myself. And that makes sense. If you want to get insurance for that type of cosmetic surgery that's elective, not reconstructive because you've been in an accident, then I think that makes sense. John, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, so Nando, as you pointed out, separating out groups undermines the financial stability of it. It's one of the reasons that the Republicans after Trump, that was one of their main ways to attack it, was to try to start pulling people out, because they know that that undermines it. Undermines it in a lot of different ways, and also sets it up to be undermined in the future. If you have single payer, okay, that's gonna be harder to dismantle whole hog.
Right.
You've seen them trying to do that in European countries. If you instead maintain private health insurance, you can start to chip away at what's covered by Medicare for All. It makes it much easier to take it away. And you might think, well, that would be so difficult. Well, they're still trying to take apart Social Security and Medicare now, and all those programs that you think are so. Roe v. Wade was passed a long time ago. They're still trying to take it away. So if we get single payer, we're gonna spend the rest of our lives defending it. Let's put it in a defensible position to begin with.
Right. Exactly. I mean, if you have the type of corruption we have now, the corporate power that we have in our system right now, creating that two-tiered system really does put government provided insurance in jeopardy. And we see it every time the Congress debates the budget. There's always talk about gutting what they refer to as entitlement programs, because corporate interests and the wealthy want to pay less in taxes. They want to provide less when it comes to making sure that these government programs are sustainable. Now, Bernie Sanders also had an opportunity to defend Medicare for All. I do want to go to that clip. Let's take a look.
Joe said that Medicare for All will cost over $30 trillion. That's right, Joe. Status quo over 10 years will be $50 trillion. Every study done shows that Medicare for All is the most cost-effective approach to providing health care to every man, woman, and child in this country. I, who wrote the damn bill, if I may say so, intend to eliminate all out-of-pocket expenses, all deductibles, all co-payments. Nobody in America will pay more than $200 a year for prescription drugs, because we're going to stand up to the greed and corruption and price fixing of the pharmaceutical industry. We need a healthcare system that guarantees healthcare to all people, as every other major country does, not a system which provides $100 billion a year in profit for the drug companies and the insurance companies. And to tell you how absurd the system is, tonight on ABC, the healthcare industry will be advertising, telling you how bad Medicare for all is because they want to protect their profits. That is absurd.
Let me just note that there were definitely pharmaceutical ads in the commercial breaks. It's kind of incredible because Bernie has called that out previously, but
like just hold off for 2 hours, 3 hours from the debate from the pharmaceutical ads, guys. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But I think it's important to note that the entire debate stage is debating a bill that Bernie Sanders wrote. So how much of an impact this man has had on the debate that we're having in this country on healthcare? It's been 2.5, 3 years since Medicare for All was introduced, and now every single candidate on the Democratic stage is either in favor of it or is attacking Medicare for All. And the more I think about what you said, Nando, about how the abolishing private health insurance talking point has been so pervasive, why I'm a little more frustrated with Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders for not really attacking that on its head, because it's come up 3 separate times. When you talk about abolishing private health insurance, you have to say, no, you're going to be covered universally. It's this fear-mongering tactic, and Bernie goes far enough and always says, I'm going to abolish private health insurance and stuff, but you can frame it in a better way and push back against the corporate media's framing on it. And Elizabeth Warren is scared of that framing, so she's kind of hedged when it comes to that specific topic. So I think both of them should really just be more strategic in the way that they're talking about the framing of this question.
Absolutely.
The thing about this healthcare debate, and I urge the viewers at home to stand strong, because it's really difficult in the face of the onslaught from everyone in the media, from the political candidates or whatever, that they make you doubt yourself. Like, oh, Medicare for All sounds great, but man, there's all these like negative things about it. Let me be clear. It's on a policy level, it is very clearly the best policy in terms of delivering healthcare to people. This is proven time and time again in different countries all around the world. Do not believe any of the talking points against it. They're all lies. The only thing that could undermine this kind of system is an onslaught from the health insurance industry and the pharmaceutical companies, all that stuff. And any policy that sort of doesn't provide a full single payer system would be a sort of dangerous compromise that would undermine the system of itself and possibly do more damage than good.
Yeah.
So, sorry, John, I just wanted to let our audience know the last 30 minutes of this program will be reserved for our members. It'll be members only, so we can, of course, provide our paying members with some extra exclusive content. Just letting you know that the back and forth between Biden and Sanders continued, and it got fiery, and we're gonna reserve that for our members only portion of this program. So become a member, support this show. That's how we are able to even do this. tyt.com/join. John.
So I published my ranking on Twitter, and I'm already getting attacked, and I sort of understand why, because I put Bernie as #1, which I think is the first of 3 debates where I've actually done that. And the reason is because of answers like we just saw there. Considering his voice, considering the lack of time later on in the debate, on the most important issues other than climate change, he got in great lines, and he answered the question, when all of the other candidates either have the same policies or want people to believe they have the same policies as you, have they disarmed your best weapons? And I don't think that they have, because he showed there that while some people might technically, be working towards the same policy goals, he can demonstrate on a daily basis that he will be the fighter who will have the best chance of making them actually happen, considering the incredible opposition that he will face. Many of them say that they're in favor of the Green New Deal or Medicare for All. They say it, and maybe they have a good plan, but are they going to wage an all-out war for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or longer to actually get it done? And I think while Cenk was right to point out that Elizabeth Warren talked about corruption a couple times, he talks about it in almost every one of his answers. He tells people what we're up against, who are the people who are actually setting the stage politically, who are the ones putting the money into the system. And I think that if you're trying to build a movement, that's a very important part of it. And he comes back to that on almost every topic.
So I know what you're talking about, because it's inherent in his answers, right? When he talks about Wall Street, when he talks about that influence. But I think it's important to call it what it is. You have to be very clear and refer to it as corruption. And I do find it interesting how Elizabeth Warren makes a point to use that word, right? labeling it that way works. And I think that it makes it clear and concise so people really understand what you're referring to. You can't expect everyone to read in between the lines. And sometimes I worry with the way Bernie answers these questions that he's assuming that people can read between the lines and understand that he's referring to corruption, or at least the influence of corporations when it comes to these policies. But you gotta be very clear. And I think Elizabeth Warren does a better job in labeling it and saying it's corruption.
No, when I've seen her on the campaign trail too, it's always corruption, the word, over and over and over again, and it's not the same with Bernie Sanders. So she is saying the word all the time, and he's not. Whether you think that his approach is better to talk about it more holistically and less about talking about just corruption and talking about more of the systemic issues about it, I don't know. But I do like that she's calling it out more specifically. And I disagree, right? I thought Bernie won the second debate wholeheartedly both nights. He was the best candidate. I don't think that he did that well tonight. I thought that he picked it up towards the end where he was able to get in some jabs at Joe Biden about the Iraq war, which is a clear difference between the two of them, and trade, which is an issue that he is very different on than the rest of the Democratic candidates. I thought Bernie did okay, not badly, but okay, especially because he picked it up at the end. Elizabeth Warren was largely invisible, but I don't think she hurt herself at all. Again, I do think the big winner is Julian Castro, but maybe I'm different than everyone on the panel here.
Oh, that's interesting.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.